Hey, what's good everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today is day 2 of exploring Master Classic, and the featured Pokemon is going to be Kyogre in the lead. So this team here consists of Kyogre, Dialga, and Giratina Altered, and we're going to be safe swapping that Dialga to bring out the best Dragon counter that they potentially have, and then that'll free up some better matchups for the Giratina Altered. So this is going to be played in a very ABB style of line. Some updates here, I will be adding IVs because that is a request made by some trainers in the community. Shout out to Pit91 for reminding me that IVs are important in Master League. So just a quick review of the IVs here for Kyogre. It is a 14-15-15, so this is actually pretty crucial. Most people will prefer a 15 attack Kyogre, mainly so it can win CMP over other Kyogres, but also because it has a very crucial breakpoint against Melmetal for the Waterfall. So fortunately I didn't have a better one, so I just chose to power this one up instead. And then my Giratina Altered is 14-14-14, which means that it does have a bulk point loss against Togekiss with Charm, but you're going to lose that matchup anyways, and in all other matchups it has the same performance, so no big deal there. And finally, my Dialga, it is 15-15-12, so it does satisfy the minimum operatable Dialga requirements of 15, 14 or higher, and 12 or higher for the stamina. So kind of right on the dot right there, 40-62 with the Best Buddy boost. So this team here, it is a pretty meta team. I think Tommy Love actually played it quite a bit last season on his stream, maybe with different order, I think with the Giratina Altered lead. And this was recommended to me today by a trainer named Piccolo X in the Wallower Discord, so shout out to you as well. So and then I'm going to be showcasing a 4-in-1 set today. So I know I said in the last video I wasn't going to showcase like these cherry pick sets or anything like that, but it is a full set. I only played 3 on stream, and unfortunately the other 2 were tainted with level 41.5 Dialgas, which is a whole other problem that Niantic still hasn't dealt with, and it's very frustrating. But the worst thing that you can have happen to you is you lose the Dialga mirror match because they hit another Dragon Breath breakpoint. So very frustrating losses right there. I'm not going to show those. I just simply feel like it doesn't worth it. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the battles. All right, into the first battle of this set, we are going up against J Alvarez 503. And we're going to be leading Kyogre into a Mewtwo. So this is kind of interesting. We saw this matchup a little bit yesterday on the stream. So Kyogre does have a pretty strong matchup against Mewtwo, but I actually take a little chance here and I swap in the Dialga here. Not sure if that was the right play or not, but my kind of justification for that is, like, even if Kyogre can apply a lot of fast move pressure with the waterfalls on the Mewtwo, Mewtwo does outpace you to quite a bit of charge moves. And the time it takes you to get to 2 Surfs, Mewtwo should be able to reach 3 Side Strikes. So I'm not interested in going down shields in that matchup just yet, so I kind of want to play the traditional ABB style, bring out the Dialga because I know the Giratina Altered can have a potentially better matchup in the end if I win switch. So bring out the Dialga, they bring out Metagross, and this is a pretty interesting matchup. I haven't really seen this a whole lot. I've seen it on a couple of other content creators' videos, but Metagross is an interesting pick because it is resistant to those Dragon Breaths, and the only way to really damage it is to hit it with a Thunder or Draco Meteor. So it's a pretty high risk situation. Pretty much I have to go for the nuke here because if I throw an Iron Head and he doesn't shield and he's counting and he calls the bait, then I pretty much just lose, and it's going to be quite a bit to farm down with the Kyogre because you're going to risk getting hit with another Earthquake. So here I count to 10 or right before 10, so I get a little bit of energy lead. And right before I think he's going to get to Earthquake, I throw a Draco Meteor. So I go for this play straight up because this will generate the most value. It's either going to get a shield or it's going to deal a ton of damage. You can see here it lands onto the Metagross. So as soon as it lands right here, this is actually my cue that I can spend shields and win switch. So so right here he's going to go throw a move here, and at this point for the Metagross, I'm not sure why he didn't. He winds up throwing a Meteor Mash here, which is very strange. He probably should have just thrown the Earthquake. So regardless, I know that I can Dragon Breath down even with the damage debuff from the Draco Meteor. I know I can Dragon Breath down the whole way before he gets to another move. And this is going to be pretty nice. It's going to set us up very nicely to win switch. Now, the only problem here is that he still has 2 shields. He's retained them, and he's going to bring in his better Dialga counting here potentially. But one thing to note is that my switch timer is almost up, so is his. So if I really wanted to, I could actually save swap one of these Pokemon right now and to kind of save and preserve my Dialga. So he's going to go ahead and bring in the Dragonite. So this is the last Pokemon that he has. Kind of a cool team comp here, and kind of makes sense, right? So you do have Mewtwo, and for potential Dialga situations or Dialga swap-ins, you have the Metagross answer, and if there's a Giratina Origin, you have a Dragonite to cover for that. Kind of an unorthodox team comp, but overall it kind of made sense. And he's going to try Dragon Breathing me down. I'm going to go up to the Draco Meteor, fire the Iron Head, and I'm going to see if my opponent shields. So my hope here is if he doesn't shield, then or if he does shield, I can just get a free shield, and then I can still dip with some energy, and he does end up respecting the Draco Meteor, and then my switch timer's coming up, so actually bring in the Kyogre here. So why I'm doing this right now is that even if this is a terrible matchup for Kyogre, my opponent already knows that I have retained a Dialga for this Dragonite in some way. So he either has to stay in with Dragonite and blow up all of his energy, and then it's going to allow me to align Giratina Altered with Mewtwo. So my opponent's in a really tough spot here. If he brings out the Mewtwo, I can chunk that, and then I can still have the Altered to spam Dragon Claws against this Dragonite. It's actually not as bad of a matchup as I thought before, and I still have the Dialga ready for the Dragonite. So it puts my opponent in a tough spot. And here I'm farming some energy. And I'm actually going to throw the Surf here. So I'm going to keep chipping away at this Dragonite. So at this point, if I can get this Dragonite low enough, I don't even have to worry about it. And I'm protecting my Giratina Altered in return. So here, I'm allowing my opponent to throw whatever energy he feels like, because I know the Mewtwo is going to come back in. And he actually uses Draco Meteors. So 2 nukes. 2 nukes on both sides. Kind of an unorthodox way to play this out, I think. But 2 nukes on both sides. And now we have... situation where I'm going to weigh out my switch clock, and because I have some energy on Dialga, I'm actually pretty confident that I can go and damage this Mewtwo if it comes in. So I'm going to wait my switch timer out and bring back in. Oh, bring in my Giratina actually to get the energy advantage. So here, although the Mewtwo had some energy already before dipping, this is not nearly as bad. So I'm going to take a Shadow Ball. I'm going to not shield anything, and now I know that I can potentially get to a point where I can KO this guy. I'm going to throw the Dragon Claw here. And my opponent lets it go. So it looks like his play right now is to try to shield the Dragonite to get as much damage in as possible, and then try to Dragon Claw down my Dialga. So I know that's not going to happen. The Mewtwo throws energy again, and now I know the Mewtwo's energy dries. So all I have to do now is, with the shield up, I can just Dragon Breath down, and that's going to end the game. So despite being very low, Dialga is unfortunately going to outpace that Dragonite, because Dialga's taking neutral damage from the Dragon Breaths, whereas Dragonite is just getting burned down. So GG's to my opponent right there. Kind of played that in a weird way, but had a feeling that I needed to preserve the Dialga in some way. And in the back, to be honest, Giratina Altered and Kyogre are both decent matchups against Mewtwo, so I just needed to reset the Dialga and have that be my MVP at the very end. So did turn out very well for me, and GG's. Alright, already into our second match here is Akeno Miri. It's going to be, sorry if you see this video trainer, I can't really pronounce that, it's a pretty tough name. So, and this time we're going to have Kyogre leading into Giratina Origin. So this is a pretty common lead. I wound up running into Giratina Origin leads quite a bit. And in the classic ABB style, you should be able to align your Pokemon in a way that you can potentially get the Giratina Altered lined up on the Giratina Origin later on in the game. So here, the only risk I have here, of course, is going to be backed up pretty strongly by potential steel types or potential dragon counters. So here, bring in my Dialga. My opponent makes a couple of Shadow Claws of damage here, which means that I will lose the 2-shield situation, assuming that their Dialga is conditioned for Master League, and it is. It's the best buddy. You can see the badge here. It's also at the same, or at the correct IV for 15, 14, 12. So I know I'm going to lose this particular situation, so I have to rely on my energy advantage and throw my Iron Head. And my goal here is to come out with a shield advantage, because if my opponent really wanted to, they could just win switch. But because they swapped out a little bit late, I do have the advantage by having the energy lead, and then I will dictate how shields are going to be used in situations. Here, I will blow the 1 shield, and I know that I'm going to reach the second Iron Head before they get to their second Iron Head, so they can either choose to shield and Dragon Breath me down, or they can choose to let this go, and I can win switch. So see what my opponent does here. I fire the Iron Head. Almost missed some bubbles right there. Actually got a little weird sensitivity on my phone there. You can see my lag is going up, and my opponent shields. So here, I've lost switch advantage, but I've retained the shield advantage, which actually isn't too bad in this situation, because with shields down, I know that even if I have lost switch advantage, my win condition right now is potentially Blizzard on Kyogre. So that's why we carry Blizzard in the lead for that Giratina Origin. But I'm going to come in with Altered here and try to snipe this guy down, and it actually does work. So my opponent wasn't anticipating me coming into Shadow Claw. He was probably anticipating a Waterfall 3-turn move, and instead I snipe him with a 2-turn move that invalidates all that energy. So that is pretty fantastic for me, but we're going to see what his last Pokemon is, because he's not going to bring the Origin into a shielded Altered. opponent's waiting, and he's got a Togekiss. So this is actually set up really, really well here. And my goal here is that I am going to lose this matchup, of course. This is Togekiss versus Giratina Altered, but it's not as big of a blowout as it would be in, say, Ultra League or some other situations where like a Charmer is against a Dragon in like Great League or something. So you actually deal quite a bit of damage, and I know that if I can try to snipe the situation to where like I'm farming a ton of energy, I need to sacrifice my Altered, protect my Kyogre, and then Blizzard is going to end the game. So here, I'm just going to try to throw my charge moves on a 1, 4, or 7 interval, and that way it's not going to allow the Charm to get through. Throw some Shadow Sneaks here, and we're going to get this Togekiss as low as possible, and then I'm going to swap into my Kyogre. So because I do this, I'm actually put in a position right now where this Giratina actually needs 2 Shadow Balls to KO me, and I need to call it. So as long as I call the Shadow Ball right there, that means that I can reach Blizzard in time. So because in the interval it takes for me to get to Blizzard, my opponent's going to get to 2 Shadow Balls. So here, my opponent's going to throw. This is fine. And it's going to deal a ton of damage, which puts me in a very awkward situation. But I'm going to hit the Blizzard here, and because I have a sliver of health left, I know that I can deal a little bit of damage with Waterfall before going down, which is actually going to be enough damage to potentially flip the matchup against Togekiss. So here, make 1, make 2, and if you see the health right here, at this point, the only thing I have to do is potentially survive the charge move, and this is a very scary moment because I'm not sure if they're carrying Ancient Power and Flamethrower or Aerial Ace. If they're carrying Aerial Ace, it makes it a lot closer, but I have enough energy right now to potentially hit it with a Shadow Sneak and end the game. So here, my opponent does have Aerial Ace, so now it's even closer, and I'm trying my best. Throwing on 4. I have to KO this Togekiss right now, and I throw the Shadow Sneak. Get it to a sliver of health, and because Shadow Claw is a 2-turn move and Charm is a 3-turn move, pick up the win right there. Very close GG's to my opponent. Despite being hard countered, you can kind of see right there, because shields were down in that mid Dialga matchup, like my opponent got put into a very tough position because Altered can take care of Origin. You're still going to lose the 0-1, but my opponent doesn't know what I have, right? So, and because he had a Togekiss in the back, eventually that wound up costing him because with shields down, I was able to get to a Blizzard on time, spend my last shield, Blizzard the Giratina Origin, and do a little chip damage to win that matchup. So, GG's and well played. Okay, for our third match, I'm going up against Trainer Marco. And we're going to be leading Kyogre into a Giratina. So once again, same kind of deal as last time, right? Giratina Origin, Giratina Altered, they have different purposes and they have different types of matchups, but for this particular case, still need to swap out of this matchup. So I'm going to go straight into Dialga, draw out their best Dragon counter. It's actually a Melmetal. So this is a little bit tough. You know, I think the matchup here is, from what I've seen and understand about Master League, the goal here is to get the Melmetal to throw a superpower and then throw your charge move right after to CMP tie on the second one. So Dialga will win CMP, but Melmetal will get the charge moves a lot faster. And in this case, the trainer, like, I think he was a little bit of a delay. You have to swap within about 2 seconds when Dialga swaps in, so you can hit the 2 superpowers before I reach Draco Meteor. And this is really interesting because he actually overfarms quite a bit. And if there's one way to try to win this match, you can actually see right there, I reached the Draco Meteor on time, so I'm actually like ready to hit it. If there's any way to screw this match, you need to put this mistake onto your opponent. So here, my opponent decides to, and I'm going to take this no matter what, right? My opponent decides to go for Rock Slide. So at this health, I cannot be superpowered and KO'd. So now I have the Draco Meteor in my back pocket in case I need it. So my opponent's still farming, and I'm like, what's going on? So he farms it to another superpower and he throws, and I'm like, okay, let's go. You gotta throw some energy, right? And here my opponent goes for the Rock Slide again, which is very weird. And at this point, I go for the Iron Head. So because I do this mainly because, like, at this point my opponent has to guess, and he's low enough that he can potentially risk a situation where he's gonna lose some health here. So go for the Iron Head. My opponent shields. So that was kind of a slight win condition for me, was making sure that I could kind of mind game my opponent into making a mistake. If you're the Dialga and you come out of this with a shield advantage, that's fantastic. That's probably the best case scenario for you right there. So here my opponent's going to keep farming, and I get to the Draco. So I don't know what my opponent is waiting for in this situation, but regardless, this is a great position for me because this means that if I get another shield, I'm totally cool with this Dialga going down. So here, my opponent fires the Draco, and it's just enough to knock it out, and or it's just enough to get him very low. So I actually do invest the shield here. I think it's worth it to try to win switch advantage if I can. Goes to the superpower, and then I catch the move onto Giratina Altered. So this way I preserve my Dialga still for potential matchup against Origin later on, because he's not really going to want to bring in the his own Origin, and I wound up Shadow Clawing down the Melmetal. So now we get to see what his last Pokemon is, which is great, and it is going to be the Dragonite. So so this situation, it's an Altered lead with kind of an ABA style dragon, a double dragon, the Steel team. Very interesting team composition. I guess he didn't want the Melmetal to go up against the Melmetal lead all the time, so makes sense. And here I'm just going to spam Dragon Claws. So I now know that my Kyogre is the most expendable Pokemon on my team. So at some point I'm going to try to bring the Kyogre in to sacrifice it so it can do as much damage as possible. And here I'm okay with him doing whatever he wants to with this Giratina Altered. I'm not going to be shielding it. I'm just going to be spamming those moves. And my goal is to try to manipulate the situation where I can either do as much chip damage with Giratina Altered and Kyogre, and then have Dialga sweep with the shield, but my opponent actually swaps right back into the Giratina Origin. Very strange gameplay here. He shielded his Dragonite and then still came in with the Origin, which is actually cue for me right now to just sacrifice the Kyogre. So and because bring in the Altered, because the Altered versus Kyogre matchup is actually not that great for Giratina Altered. Kyogre has enough of a bandwidth with an energy lead to hit a Blizzard before the Altered can KO it. I'm just going to try to get to the Blizzard as best as I can, and then I'll have my Dialga realigned with the Dragonite going forward. So here I'm just checking my health, and you can kind of see, like, despite Altered being so tanky, it's really not doing a ton of damage to this Kyogre. And right there, my opponent is letting through waterfalls, which is allowing me to progressively gain more and more energy. So I'm in the red. I need to hit the Blizzard, and I do. So normally, I would prefer if my opponent would farm me down a little bit more so the Dragonite doesn't get more farm coming back in, since we're still locked in, but I've got to KO this thing, because just in case I can't, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So here, bring in my Dialga. I've lost track of how many Dragon Breaths this Dragonite has, because it did shield, right, against the Giratina Altered that I had. So I'm thinking about, if he has back-to-back, I might have to make a catch with my Altered. So I come in with Dialga, do a bunch of damage. I'm obviously going to shield this Dragon Claw no matter what. And then I think he's like maybe like 2 or 3 seconds away, so I actually bring in my Altered. I'm going to try to catch. So I actually switched a little bit too early, so now I think I'm in trouble, but bring back in the Dialga. My opponent didn't have energy, and that's going to be a GG. So in the end, the win condition was not what I wound up envisioning, but it was still nice because we got to Blizzard the Giratina Altered and then still have to retain the Dialga for that matchup. Probably could have been a little bit tough because the Kyogre, its only value would have been to hit a Blizzard in that situation, as the Melmetal would never be aligned against it. So GG's, and we'll move on to game 4. Okay, getting into the 4th game of the set, we're going up against Battlemania 777. And he's going to be leading a Mewtwo here. So Kyogre and his Mewtwo, and this time, instead of playing it like I played the first game, I'm going to play a little bit differently. I'm going to stay in and kind of see how this matchup actually goes. I need to test and kind of stress test Kyogre to see how well it performs. And here, I'm going to throw on 5, and my opponent CMP's there, so great counting by my opponent right there. I'm going to shield the first Side Strike. So the reason I do that is just in case there's a Togekiss in the back, I still kind of need this Kyogre to survive. So I'm kind of curious to see how much I can actually endure with this Kyogre. So I go for the Surf, and here my opponent actually lets it go. So that's really nice. I'm going to try to farm down, but he is going to get to another charge move. Now the Waterfall does go through, so at this point I'm thinking, because I have the energy lead, and even if there's a Togekiss, I can still get some damage off of it and take the Side Strike. Mewtwo goes down, and I've pretty much won switch advantage, so I'm really curious what's coming in, and unfortunately he's got a Dialga. So in this situation it's a little bit rough, because I still have to swap into the Dialga. Like, I can't reach the Blizzard in time, and the Surf is not going to be really worth the throw before he gets all that energy lead. So here I do throw the Iron Head. My opponent lets it go. So I'm thinking, like, there's got to be a harder Dialga counter in the back if he doesn't care about it. And it must deal with Dialga, and it must deal with Kyogre pretty well. So my opponent actually goes for Draco there, so thank goodness I did end up shielding. And my opponent's last Pokemon is a Melmetal. So this is a little tough, because if you can see the energy right there, my opponent is going to throw straight on 5. So what this actually means is that like I'm not gonna get to a move, right? I can't even get to an Iron Head to chip this thing. So in a really bad spot, down 2 shields versus a Melmetal, but he goes straight for the superpower. So I have about a 30-second window here to bring in the Altered and start dealing damage to it. And I'm thinking maybe I can bait a little bit. So I do play around with this situation, and I go for the Dragon Claw for the first one because I figured in that situation, especially if you have the shields to use, I figured he would burn some very early because you're debuffed already, and the opponent is most likely to throw the Shadow Sneak first, and my opponent actually just lets it go. So that kind of sucks for me, but we're going to continue to go for Shadow Sneaks, and the only thing I have to be really careful for is that this Melmetal, it is debuffed. However, he can still swap out. He retained his Dialga with that little bit of energy, so I have to be very careful here. My switch timer is coming up, and I'm realizing that he brings in the Dialga and he starts Dragon Breathing, but the good thing is that he can't reach a move on the Dialga, so that means all I have to do now I can bait because my Kyogre still has enough health in the back to deal quite a bit of damage with Surf, and I'm just going to continue to aggregate that Shadow Claw damage. So here, my opponent does shield. I know that all I have to do here is land a Shadow Sneak and continue to Shadow Claw down, and I'll win the match. And despite going for Rock Slides, Giratina Altered is very thick, and we're going to reach the next Shadow Sneak here, and it's going to put my opponent basically within Waterfall range, so I can safely swap into my Kyogre and force him to throw energy. But I'm not even sure that's going to be needed here, so... Okay, so my opponent gets another charge move right there. That's great. Gonna take the Rock Slide here, but right now it's a little bit too late because I can just swap in the Kyogre, snipe it with the Waterfall, and that's going to end the game. So GG's to my opponent there. And you can see once again, even with the Mewtwo lead, I would say in that situation, my opponent's saving both shields right there, anticipating the Dialga, anticipating potentially good matchups in the back. Actually worked out pretty well for him. But, you know, Melmetal 2 shields is pretty scary. But Giratina Altered being so thick has actually a pretty decent matchup. Not sure if Giratina Origin could have pulled that off in the very end. Okay, and our last match of this set is going to be against Andre Soso 44. And there's no suspense here. I already told you guys I went 4-1, so this is definitely gonna be one of the losses, but it is gonna be a way to try to come back from a difficult lead. And you're gonna see that you know, Kyogre loves a ton of matchups in the opener. You know, it could take on Melmetal, take on Groudon, but it cannot take on Dialga. It has a very negative matchup here. Even if it's resisting Iron Head, the Dragon Breath is going to burn it down. My only option is to actually go into my own Dialga here, and it's either going to tell me that he's got Dialga counters, which he does bring in the Togekiss, or if he doesn't, it gives me an opportunity to take away that big threat to the rest of the team. So here, opponent brings in the Togekiss, and because I have a small energy lead, I can get to 2 Iron Heads in this situation, making sure to time my charge moves right there, the Iron Head. And basically Togekiss has to shield at this health range, or else I'm going to be able to Dragon Breath it down and gain switch advantage. So great counting by my opponent here. It's going to throw right before I get to the second Iron Head, and I will choose to invest a shield here. Main justification here is if shields are down, then I can still make magic happen. But if shields are up, it's going to be very difficult to come back from that Dialga, right? Because Dialga's main output is its Dragon Breath. So if I'm gonna have to go against it with Kyogre or go against it with Giratina, then the worst situation that can actually happen is that I just get Dragon Breath down with a 1-shield Dialga. So I will make a decision here to potentially go for switch with my opponent not knowing what I have in the back. So he does double shield. This is pretty good, and he's gonna charm me all the way down. And I'm going to bring in the Kyogre. So don't wait the switch clock out, because I know that he can potentially safe swap into another Pokemon, and I'm going to waterfall this thing all the way down. I don't care what charge move this is. It's probably going to be a Flamethrower. I think it's more energy efficient in this case, and I'm just going to let him throw whatever. Okay, it is a Flamethrower. It does a good amount of damage. It actually does more than Ancient Power does. My opponent brings in the Giratina Altered. You can see here I'm 4 waterfalls away from Blizzard, which means I can catch the Ominous Wind. So this gives me the kind of the win condition that I need, right? Because what's going to happen here is that I've got a shield, and I know this is an Ominous Wind. So if my opponent is forced to bring in the Dialga in the situation, I can still Blizzard it and take it out. So so here I'm going to catch this Ominous Wind, and knowing that my opponent still has a pretty healthy Dialga in the back, and I'm going to be able to beat this Giratina to the next charge move, and with a shield, I'm actually going to be able to take it out. So I just need to survive long enough that I'm able to throw some energy at the Dialga, but then, you know, as I'm doing this, I'm realizing that there's a Togekiss still that I have to take care of, which is very, very bad for me. Giratina does throw Shadow Ball here, which gives me, I can farm up 5 extra Shadow Claws before I throw my next charge move. So I'm trying to get as much energy as I possibly can here. And here's the thing, my opponent loses if he brings in the Dialga. And I'm just like kind of waiting for whatever's coming in, and unfortunately my opponent is very smart. He knows this. He knows I have to dump the energy on Giratina onto this Togekiss to take it out. And unfortunately, at this health level, even if I have the Blizzard Store, the Dialga's at full health, and I'm going to deal as much Shadow Claw damage as I can. If I could have gotten to that Dragon Claw, it would have been fine. I'm going to chuck the Blizzard at the Dialga as my last possible win condition, and unfortunately, you're going to see that we're going to end up being just short. So that Steel typing on there is not going to be very friendly. And I'm like one waterfall away. He's probably going to KO me with Dragon Breaths regardless, but he gets the Iron Head, and that's going to be GG. So very close match right there. It's very tough to come back from a hard counter lead with a hard counter swap in. But I felt like there was some real play there, because you're playing up against zero shield situations with Kyogre and Giratina Altered. They do give you some flexibility, and they allow you to make some plays right there. So. And the unfortunate part for this team is that Dialga lead. There's really no safe swap for this team, so against that particular lead, and you just got to bring in your Dialga and see what you can make happen. So got very, very close right there. So yeah, and looking back over at the gameplay, not sure if there's anything else I could have done. Maybe I could have gotten a couple extra Shadow Claws against that Togekiss, but the health is very important on these Pokemon, so I really didn't want to get Dragon Breath down before I could throw a move regardless. So yeah, trying to do as much chip damage as I can, but we end up just short. So 4-1 on that set. Very, very fun team to play. I recommend it if you have the resources for Master League. Like I said, I'll be looking at some budget options later on this week. But again, we're going to take a look at some meta lines. This one is obviously very strong, and you might be encountering it quite a bit as you climb the Master Classic. Okay, and that's going to do it for episode 2, I suppose, of Exploring Master Classic, where we take a look at Kyogre in the lead. So if you enjoy this content, please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. And like I said, rest of the week, 1 video per day of different Master League teams and a different set of for shoutcasting. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.